there. I do want to let everyone know this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. It will also be posted up on the Nrsd YouTube channel after the fact, as soon as we can get it processed and put up there. So, we'll start off with our regular business, so we can work through that. Without further ado, I would take a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 9th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Lori and a second from Jeff. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So those were passed unanimously. Next up, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 23rd, 2022.
So moved.
I have a meeting with Jen and a second from Lori. Any questions or comments about the minutes as they were written? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And that was unanimous. And lastly, I would entertain a motion to approve, oh, Jesus, I'm so sorry, to approve the meeting minutes of March 2nd, 2022.
Madam Chair, I did not see those in the, did they come? Where was that?
To be honest, I don't remember.
They're in the drive and attached to the agenda, and did I not
I
know?
didn't see them.
So you know what, why don't we, let's hold off and we'll approve them at the
Okay.
next meeting, just so that everyone has an opportunity to read them. There's no harm in doing that, so. Okay. Bills and payroll attached to our information is just the list of warrants that have been signed. So I would entertain a recommendation to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented. I have a motion from Hank. Do I have a second? Second. And a second from, I'll go with Jen over here. Any questions or comments on those warrants? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So that was unanimous as well. So first up tonight, we have our student representative, Matthew Hughes. And Matthew, would you like to give us our report?
I'll be talking about all the business in the district in the past month or so. Up in the high school, the most recent piece of news to share is that on Monday, March 14th, that would be 3/14, the high school enjoyed Pi Day with a lot of festivities. These festivities including penny guessing, puzzle competitions, and a Pi Day scavenger hunt. These are all put on by Mu Alpha Theta. And a special thank you to Table Talk Pies for their donation to our event. In the athletic realm, we had 2 athletes compete at the Nike Indoor Nationals down in Staten Island, New York. And those were Kylie Marion in the 5,000 meter and Emily Kilberry in the freshman 400. It was a great culmination to their very successful seasons. Another sports note, spring sports start practicing next week. Those sports are baseball, softball, and track. On the topic of fundraising, the 9th grade is holding a butter braids and cookie dough sale, and the 12th grade is holding a Krispy Kreme donuts and coffee sale. So, if you're interested, please find a freshman or senior to buy those from. And in April, there will be an underclassmen dance at the Baldwinville Legion for grades 8 to 10. That'll be on April 1st. And the next night, also at the Baldwinville Legion, at 7 p.m., the senior class is hosting a trivia night. It's $20 for a team of 4. There will be basket raffles, snacks, and lots of prizes. Another fundraiser coming up is the Penny Award, which will be put on by the National Honor Society. And the last note, I guess there's some humor going on, I'm not sure what this is about. But I guess the last note, another athletic note, is that the cheer team has had great successes all season at their competitions, and they will be up next to discuss those with you. Down in the middle school, there are only a couple notes. First of all, the Gansett Olympics. It was an event put on through the middle school that coincided with the Olympics, and it was just a great way for kids to get involved, and I guess there was a lot of enthusiasm surrounding it, so it was a great success. And intramural sports have been starting up for 5th and 6th graders. Those currently include crazy soccer, team handball, and flicker ball. And that is all I have to share at this moment.
Madam Chair, I apologize for my outburst. It needs to be said that I had a wonderful conversation, as I try to do as much as possible, with the Warrior group of the seniors, and they asked very politely and appropriately if I would participate in said pie in face in the penny wars, and I couldn't help but laugh to think when obviously Mr. Hughes had said that. So I have given my permission to do that. I will be fodder for at some point, but I'm just laughing because we had a good conversation.
I'm hearing that he he didn't volunteer, he was voluntold that he would be ready.
That's what I'm actually laughing about, actually. They had the jar already marked, so that's the problem. Yes.
Probably one of the biggest fundraisers that we'll be having.
He will be generating single-handedly a lot of money.
I think the school committee will represent.
Thank you. And anybody else want to add anything? I just want to say I know that you're working on some elementary school updates, but we do have Heather next to you who's got some stuff. And I know we have our principal here tonight who, if there's anything important that you wanted to edit, we certainly would love to hear. And if you want to hold that to what I think Heather wants to report on and kind of tag team, that would be awesome. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments, or $11 for Krispy Kreme or coffee for your class? Okay. Well, we're going to move on to our next appearance, which is our Nrsd Cheer Squad. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Casavan first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to make sure I post this wonderful picture up here so folks can see. And what I always find funny is that, like, I hate that picture, but they're ready for it. You know what I'm saying? So what you're looking at, folks, is you are, well, in this picture, you're looking at the Division 4 state third place representatives who will also do some wonderful things, which I'm not going to take away from the thunder of Coach Hazelton, who will come down, if she would be so kind, just in front of the mic to explain all the wonderfulness that has happened over the last, I don't know, I'm losing track at how many you're winning in a row, but so maybe if you wouldn't mind coming up to tell us all the victories.
All right. So first up, I want to start off. Yesterday was the 2-year anniversary from the day that they gave us a call and said, we are canceling the state championship. We were heading there that day. And so over COVID, we actually did compete virtually, which was really interesting, doing our own routine in our gym to nobody. And we actually ended up placing 4th at states that year. So that was a great accomplishment there in itself. But these kids, they got a taste for it and they wanted to keep going. So in the fall last year, we won Midwest League champs. We were the first, we won regional champs for the first time since 2011. So that was a great feat. And then we took 7th at states. And then this season, we continued going. We were completely undefeated. We won all 3 of our invitationals. We were back-to-back Midwest champs, back-to-back regional champs again, and then 3rd in the state, which also hasn't been done since 2011. So we are heading to the New England Championship to battle out all the New England top winners. And then hopefully we would like your permission to travel to a national tournament down at Hershey Park, Pennsylvania in April vacation.
Well, first off, I'd like you to maybe introduce our team that I know is here and ask them to come up because I think photo op would be really nice.
Absolutely.
I think I'd love to hear some recognition.
Well, so first off, I'd like to introduce my assistant coach. This is Gabby O'Malley, who was one of my former cheerleaders, so you can lead the parade. We have Ashton Gallagher, who is a junior. Gabby Warren is also a junior. Are you a sophomore? You're a sophomore. Our senior captain, Nadia Survey, who helped lead the team. Kayla DeRocher. Then I have Anna Leclerc, Gabby O'Malley. Our freshman, Kaylin Cascati, Kylie Hill, Ava Lyskawa, Casey Lovewell, and Madison Tillman.
I'd like to get a picture of everybody.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we need to
We want it exactly like that picture. I want everybody to move into that where we were.
You need us to go.
Do you want us to like, someone? Yeah, double up.
Yeah, maybe
I'm
here.
just gonna, yeah. No, we're really good at that. There we go.
No pressure, this is an important picture.
Well, thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So much, huge accomplishment, and we've had so many wonderful successes this year, and it's nice to see our cheer team recognized. I know you guys are out there practicing every day, all year round. So let me ask, so you said you have, and where is that?
So New England Championship is at Worcester State, which is great, right down the road.
What day?
We competed Saturday.
On this Saturday.
This Saturday, yeah.
So hopefully we'll get a lot of support from your fan base to come out and watch. And then when would,
So nationals would be the weekend of April 23rd and 24th, which is right at the end of April vacation. So my plan is that we're going to rent a Wilson bus to travel the team as well as any parents, so we can all travel together and stay at one of their hotels. We've already found hotels that can accommodate all of us, or most of us at least. We've got a couple driving down. The competition is on Saturday, April 23rd for high school teams. And then Sunday, we get park passes to Hershey Park so we can celebrate our wonderful season. And then we'll be coming home on Monday, the 25th.
excellent, well, I'm sure Dr. Kazdan will have something for us at this time.
Absolutely. You had me at Hershey Park. I was like, wait a minute.
Well, congratulations, and thank you so much for coming in and sharing your time with us, and your story was wonderful. Any comments or?
Madam Chair, I will say that I am a novice rookie, quite frankly, when it comes to cheerleading. They know I've gone will definitely be there for nationals this weekend. They make me so nervous. I can't watch them. No, but it's true. I can't watch them because they make me nervous. And they just throw these children, these young ladies, just high. And I don't know, I can't watch, but it is an unbelievable feat that they've accomplished, honestly. This is, I understand the inner workings from the captain. She's told me all about all the good teams and how they get marked. For us to have scored so well, if I understand this, nationally, right, to get that national score, which we already hit February vacation. And to look at the scores from those other teams who came in first, second, or whatever, it was amazing to see how high that national score was, in comparison. I think we have a really good chance. I'm just so proud of them. They know that.
So to get a national bid, you have to score above an 80. So if there's 7 teams that all score above that, then everyone gets a national bid. So we actually only missed second place by 0.3. And the first place team is not going to New England, so it's going to be us and Joseph Case battling it out again to maybe get a New England trophy.
Good luck on Saturday. I did watch, you had filmed the routine from last weekend, so I was able to watch that on Instagram or Facebook, wherever it was. So if you haven't seen it, just go out there and watch it. I was cheerleader for the Phillipston Memorial School. Beautiful yellow corduroy, and these young girls have, there may or may not be a picture of me somewhere floating around in there.
Or there will be.
And it is nothing, it amazes me the skill and the level that really fulfill that. But it's just awesome.
Unbelievable.
Forget the pie in the face, I want to see crooks on top of that.
They're good, they're not that good. I'm not saying.
Well, thank you, and one more time. Thank you.
And you do not need to feel the need to stay, ladies, if you don't want, just so you know that. I want to give you permission to feel okay to leave.
Yeah, we realize that you also go to school.
Work.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have our first appearance is about our Thrive program. We have Conway.
Thank you, ladies.
Congratulations.
So we would like Holloway here, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, and again, I'm going to throw it over to Dr. Kazman just to give us a quick intro about what this is about.
Honestly, it'll be very quick, Madam Chair, thank you. So Mr. Holloway and his team have been working diligently to find a way, quite frankly, to find a way to bring some of our children back who are otherwise placed in our district placements. You know, it certainly strengthens our community, and they're warriors, regardless if they're here or going to school other places. So, Mr. Holloway is going to take it from here. Please.
So I get to follow the cheer team.
Almost national champions, no stress. Right.
Only down.
But I see you have a medal, and I just want to...
I do not.
Oh, you're.
I didn't know that. So yeah, thank you for your time and for the chance to speak tonight. We want to share with you two programs. One in particular is looking at our high school program, and I'm really happy to be joined here with Jess Connolly, who is our new high school psychologist. She's filling a position that has been vacant and been filled by multiple people over a couple of years now. So she's been doing a wonderful job. And Ashley Nickel, who you've met before, who is our assistant PBS director and also school psychologist. And so what we want to talk to you about a little bit is just sort of how do we start to look at addressing the needs of kids who have social, emotional, mental health needs, who are at risk of attending school outside the district and outside placement, who currently are. So I think this program really does kind of it rests on the question of can we support students with more significant therapeutic needs in the district on site here in their neighborhood schools, you know, among their peers, and giving them opportunities, frankly, to access the general education curriculum and the teachers that they would normally be getting instruction from. That is one of the biggest things when I talk to my colleagues and others in this field about the importance of bringing students home and having them, you know, closer to the school community is access to their teachers. You know, I mean, these programs do their best to staff. They do amazing work, and the last person ever throwing shade at any of these programs and the work that they do. But the truth is they really struggle to hire and retain qualified teachers. And so if we can find ways to connect these kids to our staff, then everybody will benefit. So as you see there, that's kind of the profile of the students we're looking at. Number one is returning, students who are returning from out-of-district placements. Number two will be students who are at risk of requiring out-of-district placements. I'm going to let Ashley and Jess speak a little bit to just the general bones of what a program like this is going to look like, and then I'll talk a little bit about the fiscal and other implications of it afterwards.
So basically there would be like a clinical component, which would be my end of the spectrum in terms of kind of designing like the therapeutic aspect of the program, and then it would be staffed full-time with a special education teacher to take on more of the academic end of the spectrum. And then also paraprofessionals with like behavior backgrounds to help manage behaviors when things may go not according to plan. And also, of course, support from special education staff as needed. So the therapeutic component would include like a group counseling, either once a week or multiple times a week, individual counseling for all the students, recognition and reinforcement programs for each child, and then social emotional learning, help them build skills so that they can integrate back into the regular education environment. But that would obviously be done through like rigorous data taking to make sure they're ready to return.
And we did bring some of this information to the Finance Committee last week, and I think the reason that Dr. Hickman, correct me if I'm wrong, but we felt like now was the time to really bring this to you as a full committee is the need to start finding a special education teacher who can really lead this program. Certainly when these students start the school year, they'll spend the full day in this program with one skilled special education teacher. And that's somebody who, you know, if you've been around this world a little bit, you need therapeutic behavioral chops. You have to be able to support students when they're having mental and emotional challenges. But but you have to have academic chops too, especially at the high school level. And it's not an easy position. I'm confident if we start the hiring work soon, it's not, we can do it, we can find somebody, but it's not an easy spot to fill it. So we felt like now is the time to really start this conversation with you. And this has been in the works for a year plus in terms of, what the program might look like. And we did start sort of a general conversation with our faculty around what some of the implications would be of a program like this earlier this year. But again, it's all been general strokes, and now we're getting to the point where we need, sort of your permission, your authority to kind of move forward with creating this role, which is a good segue into sort of financial implications of something like this, because this is not part of the, sort of FY23 budget request that we make directly. This really does ride on working with families whose students are currently out of district and bringing them back, honestly. And this is not my first time kind of exploring something like this, and I will say that the trust issue of working with a family of a student who's struggled in the general ed setting in the past, and then bringing that student back in, it's not a simple matter. And so, you see a list of 6 up there. I removed kind of the identifying details, but I just want to point out, you can see the pattern, right? If you look down the grade for next school year, 10, 9, 8, 9, 9, 10. And that's a small subset. We have about 17 students total who are out of district, but our kids who have therapeutic needs tend to fall in that sort of grade 7 to 11 range, which is one of the driving factors behind constructing this program the way that we're presenting it right now. That's a group where we may not get all 6 of those to come back right away. I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, but we'll have to get a certain critical mass. And if we don't get a critical mass, we can't move forward. I mean, that's sort of the ultimate deal of a program like this, is that the finances have got to work on year 1 for us to be able to move something forward. And then the therapeutic supports and the educational supports, that's got to work on year 1 too, because that's how we build, continue to maintain that trust, and then retain those students year over year. Because I will say that, these financial savings, that this is a 1-year snapshot of about a third of our out-of-district students, all who fit into pretty nicely into these students. Everybody has unique needs, but as a group, they do fit fairly nicely into a programmatic design. So the opportunity seems to be kind of right now for students who are at the beginning of their high school credit earning experience to join us in a program like this, and add a significant cost savings to the district as well. I will say that, of course we're looking at the bottom line numbers on this thing, but really that is not the impetus for this work. The impetus for this work is to bring students closer to home, to give them, one of the most difficult parts of my job is many of these students say, can I play sports? Can I be on student council? And I say yes, call, we'll work with superintendent's office, we'll work with the athletic director, we'll make anything that you want happen. The logistics of it just invariably, I've had a couple of times where kids actually can come participate in extracurriculars, but it's just a lot to get, you have to leave your current school early to get to the school. So giving them opportunity to participate in the full life of the district and the life of the community, that really is kind of the driving motivation behind this. And I think it also really, it improves us. It improves us as a district to be able to have this, as an offering to students who come along. I did mention the at-risk category, students who are at risk of leaving the district. We do not anticipate starting the year with any students who are currently enrolled. So in other words, we intend to kick off the school year with a group of students who are returning from out of district. But of course, that roster may shift as the year goes on. The barriers to success that I will just say, this is from personal experience and also from consulting with colleagues all around the state. Finding the right special ed teacher, that's it. That really is the most important thing, is if we can't find that person, can't hire them in time. And there's a lot of research on hiring educators, and timing is everything, literally everything. You can start making a push towards this in April, May. You can find good people, either internally or externally. But if you don't, then the scramble of just piecemeal staffing something like this is just not fair to kids. Obviously, individual family commitments. And I've been having conversations with all of these families, for the past 2 years since I've been here, about their desire to return, closer to the home school for a variety of reasons. They're motivated by many reasons. But so, securing enough family commitments to make this feasible, of course, is a major potential barrier. But I'm fairly confident that we can get them there. We do have verbal agreements with several, tentatively already. And then communication, anytime we let our communication lapse, that's it. Something like this where you have a whole, school and school district affected, any step of the way where we don't continually communicate and listen as we go is, obviously there's quite a few potential benefits. Here's a few. Seeing the success of these kids, obviously that's number one, is improving the outcomes for them. The research on college opportunities and post-grad opportunities for kids who are in district programs is not great in terms of, what their next steps look like, and I think we can do better here, frankly. The staff collaboration piece is really huge. I think, just having Jess and Ashley and a teacher kind of running a therapeutic program, everybody benefits. It's a collegiality thing. You get to know each other, you see what they're doing, you come and hey, what do you think about this? And it does build our overall skill set as a school district. And I don't need to tell anybody here that, youth mental health right now is probably the biggest crisis that our country is facing. So I think anything we can do to build our knowledge and ability in that domain is really vital. Having a continuum of supports for current students, like I said, our vision here is not for this is a place that we go, close the door, see you at the end of the school year. Our vision here is that these students spend the day in this classroom, but they earn their way out to the general population. We have this is a safety net for them to return to if they struggle. But the goal is for them to earn their way out into the general population. So that continuum is really important. And then of course I mentioned the financial savings. There's also the potential, not this year, but down the road, for bringing school choice. There's various mechanisms for bringing kids in from other communities, but let's say that we hit a point in 3 years where we don't have this level of acute therapeutic need here. I have several colleagues in neighboring districts that I can call, and I'm pretty sure we can fill slots should that situation arise. So I think the potential benefits definitely outweigh the risks of something like this. We're being very deliberative in every step of the way with this thing. We're staying in very close contact with those 6 families that you saw on the screen initially, and really trying to partner with them as we go forward. And then we're learning from our neighbors. We went out and visited one program a couple weeks ago, or one of the next tomorrow. And we really want to learn from the mistakes of others and just sort of build on a really great talent pool. And you've heard from Ashley before. That we have a tremendous amount of expertise in the area of social emotional learning and mental health in this district. And so now we really want to kind of take it to the next step, which is to do some program design and to introduce some new options for our kids. And I just went along. Do you want to chime in on anything?
Took it out from it. No, I see it as a great opportunity, and a lot of times, we might think of a location for a student to go to that would be a really good fit, and we call and they say we have no spots. And so does it mean this program will work for every out-of-district kid? Absolutely not. There are such a variety of needs in every student, but I think we can meet the needs of a lot of students here, and I just can't say enough about the weight and value in keeping kids in the building, because they have such an easier opportunity to transition back into mainstream, which is our goal, particularly as their secondary transitioning out of high school is so essential. They're going to be part of our community. We don't want them to go from a very sheltered living out working in your grocery store if they have a lot of mental health and behavioral needs, right? So this is really a way to help these students, to prepare them beyond high school and get them to a place where they have independence and they can, really learn to interact with the community outside of a sheltered experience. And when they're in the building with us, that is the best opportunity for them to experience that than taking a 45-minute bus ride somewhere else.
Thank you. Questions?
So I think one of my biggest concerns, other than the financial, would be that over the past few years, we've really expanded and built on our social emotional programs here within the school. I think one of my concerns would be, are we going to be pulling resources from the programs we're building, from the children we currently have, in doing it here, such as teachers, counselors, resource officers, things like that. That would be a concern that I would have. Can you just speak about that a little bit?
Well, that was probably the first thing that, because everything has been sort of tentative, but an open conversation. probably one of the first things that the teaching faculty at the high school asked us about right away was, hey, look, we've got some good people, but I mean, this sounds like quite the challenge. And they didn't, I think, fully understand that we were talking about creating a new dedicated position for this, a new dedicated teaching position and support staff. This support staff for a program like this will need a certain level of skill and expertise. So we will need to hire for it. And strangely, the two questions I think are actually, two sides of the same coin, really, because that's where, making sure that we can make the prudent, conservative financial savings on the returns, we need a staff for it. You cannot do this on a shoestring. You can't, and I mean, I hate to say it, but this happens mid-year. I don't know, I mean, in public school districts all across the state and the country, middle of the year, people say, oh my gosh, we got a bunch of kids with severe needs, let's start a program. We cannot rob, those are rob Peter and pay Paul, we really can't. So, this will be a position that we will post, internally and externally. Internal staff are welcome to apply, but it will be an additional slot in that faculty list. So,
I would go as far as to say that certainly this isn't a standalone program in the sense that it's not a part of the district, but the students who would eventually come back would have to be at the level of care where they are not going to require more than we're able to provide. So in that really, you're talking to the three folks right there who are really responsible for that, who know these kids, again, very well, and there's really, quite frankly, a vetting process. It isn't so much like, hey, who'd like to come back? It's more about what, how appropriate it is for them to access this program.
We'll have entrance criteria with the program that will look at that for sure. But I can tell you that I will not be decreasing any mental health services in this district because I'm one of the people driving, expanding those services as we speak. So I certainly would introduce a program that I thought would take away from the rest of the population.
Any other questions? I actually have one, if you don't mind. I'm just looking, just from a numbers perspective, and I want to say right off the bat, and I think when Dr. Kazner presented this to the Finance Committee, I don't know if it was my exact quote, but it was something, I think I said something to the effect of, it's a shame that we even have to look at a financial projection because what this program does, you might need to have success to build upon. One student, it looks like it covers the local cost anyway, but it would be a shame to not look to do this when the benefit, and forget the monies, because it's not about the monies, it's about our kids, and the benefits to all of the students, the entire student body will benefit from something like this. So I just want to go on record saying that I think this makes so much sense to create a program where we can do this and move forward. And I'd like for numbers not to be a huge part of the final decision on this as much as we can. I understand we have budget constraints. I think we all know better than probably a lot of people about those. But I would really love to, those student benefits just outweigh some of these numbers. So, thank you. I do have another.
I guess at this point, what are we looking for?
That's what's going to be up.
My question, just knowing that kind of profile of some of the high schoolers, is one teacher and two paraprofessionals enough when you have students who are, say, dysregulated or in crisis? And then my understanding at the high school level, you have to be more subject-specific certified. So finding a teacher that's teaching algebra, ELA, chemistry, what are we offering or limiting these students because it's all within one program with one teacher teaching 3 or 4 grade levels in multiple subjects?
So I really appreciate that question. And it's one of the reasons that the push towards inclusion is so important, is to get students access to licensed teachers in all those content areas, especially from their high school transcript. So the state regs allow for a special education teacher to teach accredited classes in all content areas. So in terms of maintaining transcript integrity, we can do that with a single teacher, but the staff collaboration thing, and by the way, I think that's the other part, is if we can bring in strong staff to run this, I think that the rest of our mental health team benefits, from that professional collegial relationship. But the model that we saw that I think we're most sort of inspired by is that Gateway Regional, which is out west, Huntington, Chesterfield area. And they really are focused on, in a very deliberative way, students who are having success within the program, branching out and joining one or two gen ed classes. And if they have success in that setting, branching out and joining another one. And so, really making that move into the gen ed classes. In terms of, so it's a great question about, is our 3 core staff sufficient? Jess, when we scoped out Jess's job responsibilities, we did look at her spending, not a majority, but probably about 40% of her day supporting the program through those clinical therapeutic components, and that gives the teacher some flexibility in terms of some of the groupings that they're going to do instructionally. Also another set of licensed, highly credentialed expert eyes to help work with the students. So, Jess won't be a direct staff within the program all day, every single day, but she'll have a very much a dedicated chunk of her work day, spending time with those students. So we're trying to address those things. I don't anticipate our numbers growing beyond, I would say, 9 or 10 in this first year, honestly, and we will keep that ratio low. We haven't actually talked about a strict quantitative ratio for the program, but I think the sort of 3 to 6, 3 to 7 that we have on paper right now, we wouldn't go much beyond that in the first year.
Would you anticipate when those students are ready to go out into the general education classroom that they would do so fully independently?
So the way that the model that again, this is all sort of, we're still working this out, the details of it, but the model that we learned from was there's a 2-week period where one of the paraprofessionals or support staff goes with the student for that class for 2 weeks, and if that's a successful 2 weeks, then they begin to fade out and fade back into that program, to their program responsibilities. So the goal is for them to be independently in those classes. And if they can't be independently in those classes, then it's probably time to take a step back, reassess, what part of, what do we need help on? What do we need to work on? Because really, if they have to have, somebody sort of on their shoulder through the day, then we think they're better served in the program.
And actually, reminded me of one question I did want to ask is, the programs you looked at, talk a little bit about how you came up with that this was the model that you thought would work best. Kind of already alluded to it, so.
Well, there's a little bit of just sort of, I think, professional opinion / bias in terms from Ashley and me. I am a long-time special education teacher, and I really think that the academics for kids with therapeutic needs are oftentimes the unspoken. It gets forgotten. Oh, he's stable, she's quiet, and we just try to do that. So really, when I talk to my colleagues, that is my question: is how are you addressing their academic needs? It's kind of the maybe question 1A, right? The therapeutic needs do tend to be question 1, but question 1A is the academic needs. So looking for, I think that was, for me, that was one of my priorities: stability. Programs that have been able to not only continue, but also expand, grow. So the Gateway, we looked at a program that had been around for many years. A program that I'm very much inspired by is in Conway, Frontier Regional. It's called WINGS. It was run by a special ed teacher and a school psychologist as like a little dynamic duo. But they were together for like 20 years, like literally, the two of them. And so nobody's pretending that we're going to replicate something that took 20 years to build. But it's an inspiring model because we have Ashley, because we have such a great psychology team. I think that, yes, we're going to address behavior. We have a fabulous BCBA at the middle high school level who will certainly be a major part of the design. So yes, we're going to address behavior, but what we really want to address are underlying therapeutic social-emotional needs, and really, use that as our entree into academics, because managing behavior is hard. It's one of the most important things, but really, I think, we want to go a little bit deeper than that, and so I think knowing who we have in terms of our talent, and seeing some of those models out there, those are some of the things that we kind of considered in this process.
I would add they also had like the most thorough like protocols and things that really aligned with what they're actually doing. And that particular program that we're modeling to, the staff have maintained. And so to me, that tells me these people aren't miserable coming to work every day, and they have stayed in a program that's incredibly challenging to work in. So they have to be doing something right. And that stood out for me the most, is that they have these staff. They even have an adjustment counselor who was kind of just involved, who's now fully immersed in the program. So that was very telling to me.
Thank you for sharing that. That's good information. Does anybody else have any questions before we ask what Jeff started to ask is, okay, so what do Dr. Caswell, what do you need from us at this point, other than support?
I would think that, I don't believe that I would need a vote necessarily, just given the fact that we're not utilizing anything, that we're not changing the general fund number or anything to that effect. I think that what was more important than that is that you heard at least the beginnings of this plan, that you certainly are knowledgeable of it. So as we proceed, that the committee is aware of what we're doing and how we're doing. And I think that to the point we all feel a bit dirty every time we have to tie in the children to dollars. All of us feel this guilt. Unfortunately, though, it's the way of the world, and we could have the very best program in the world, and I fully expect that we will at some point. But if it does not work out financially, then we'd have to kind of go back to what we have. I would say this, that in my experience, is that year one, year two, people are always, for the people who watch money very closely, everyone's like, this is fantastic, and then folks start to forget about realized savings. So I'm going to stay on the money side, because you certainly heard the therapeutic side. I'll just talk about money. The fact is that when you look at what we're paying just in transportation, because I believe that therapeutically we have what it takes to do that. But transportation is almost more, if not, I don't have the slide, but it's more expensive than the actual therapeutic, if I'm not mistaken, right? Close, I can't tell, no. Tuition.
Not the tuition.
Not tuition, but
then the cost.
But the cost itself, right? So the fact is that alone, we save that every year forever. There'll always be other needs, trust me. But I think they had to convince this group, the bigger group, about the therapeutic value. That was easy. The financial piece is something that Anne Marie and I, and of course through the finance subcommittee, we're tasked to worry about. I'm not worried about that, because otherwise there's the check that that the district will be writing every single year. I think they will benefit leaps and bounds more than they are, because they'll be here, and I'm biased, right? But we will do better by them, because they'll be here, they'll be home. So I don't believe there's a vote here. I don't believe. I certainly.
I don't think so. I mean, really, this is, I think from the committee standpoint, what I'd like to know is, like, at what time frame, I know you need to post for a position for the special ed teacher and the supports, and those are going to be highly qualified for the things that you need. So I imagine it is going to be challenging. So the more time, the better. But what is what flips the switch from let's talk about it to it's a go? Is it commitment from a couple of families? And I want to say, more of a question. So we're asking for commitment, but really the families are going to drive what the decision is at any day, any time, right? I'm assuming they could change their mind about things, but
yeah, I think what would make sense to me that suits the committee would be maybe to have us come back to you at the beginning of the summer, or maybe in June, towards the end of the school year, because the question is do we find the right person, and do we agree on IEPs? I mean, this is going to require families, making an agreement with us, and we have a consensus IEP process. And so sort of I think, as our cast man said, having a collaborative dialogue with you and keeping you informed of this allows us then, when we come back in June, I can say, well, the following things are great. Hopefully there won't be too many sort of, barriers, but something always comes out. And so I would just appreciate the chance to maintain that dialogue. And if something does come to the, come to need a vote for some reason, then we would, cross that bridge then. So I think that's the only thought that I have. Let's just maintain an ongoing discussion.
Okay, we'll definitely have it back on the agenda. We'll say for June, but if that time frame needs to either come up or push back, we'll work on that. So, any other questions before we move on to our next? Well, thank you very much. I am very excited about the premise of this program because it serves the needs of our students and our families. And I think it's the families too, to me, that speaks. To not have your kid sit on a bus to be, and the overhead that the families might find that decreases some of this, and that's going to help too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Turn it over to you guys. I'll just stay right here.
Stay here for the next presentation.
Right.
Is about our pre-K program, and I'm going to throw it back to Dr. Casman to intro.
Thank you, Madam Chair, as he wants to do, this is, the Matt Holloway show. Just Matt, I believe there was a couple jokes of just Matt earlier. So this conversation actually came about, not serendipitously, we constantly talk about pre-K and K quite a bit. But we were able to get together a couple weeks ago and just to discuss the needs of pre-K. And pre-K and K always really requires to look into the future. You're always looking for those kiddos who are turning 3, and the census is a big watch. So as we sat down, and I certainly don't want to take anything from the story, but clearly what was communicated is that given a lot of things that Ms. Altizik and of course Mr. Bonnie and Matt will talk about, is that we're already at the point where we're at a wait list for next year. Right? So we, again, given the ratios which they'll go into, that we're already sitting at a point where we don't have enough seats, so to speak, for our pre-K kiddos. With that, we started talking about the possibility of adding a full-day pre-K program, which I then am going to turn over because I will not do its justice. So I'll turn it right back over to Mr. Holloway or to whomever is going to take it from that point.
This is the Terry Monty show.
Okay, perfect. I figured it was, but
So I can't speak to this and give it justice the way Mr. Monty will in a minute. I can just speak to experience, which is having come from a building that had a 5-day, full-day program for pre-K, and sometimes watching our 2.5, 3-year-olds come in, you go, oh my gosh, we're doing these little ones when they go to kindergarten. But then sometimes, depending on where their birthday falls, we have them for 3 years before they get kindergarten. And watching some of these kids come in at that young age, transition into a 5-day program, pre-K program.
sorry, Madam Chair.
And then transitioning to kindergarten, it's amazing the independence that they build in that time, that they have the continuity of that 5 full-day program. So that's where I'm coming from. We also, Terry and Matt, everybody would have talked about, just like we talked about the level of need, the upper levels, the level of need of kids coming in. And the bottom line is if we can't support them here, we are going to, not to talk about finances, have to pay for them to go somewhere else. So now, I will turn that over to our early childhood guru, Ms. Monty, who has all the information you want to hear.
Well, this year we already have 98 slots being occupied. 91 children. 7 of those slots are double top. We have 7 children that require more time than the half-day program allows. So 7 of those children attend a morning and an afternoon program. We have about 10 projected IEP days before the end of this year. The children turning 3 coming in. So I'm guessing my probability would be probably 6 of them will probably be eligible for the program. And we only have 2 IEP spots available. So that kind of puts us over, it kind of ties our hands. We are allowed to have in an integrated preschool program, you can have up to 20 students in a classroom, and 5 of them are on IEPs. If you have more than 5, you can have 15 students in the program, with 7 of them being on IEPs, and it's still considered meeting the ratio that DESI puts out for being considered an integrated program. If we were to run a full-day program, we could, if we went with, I'm going to go with the highest, if we went with 20 students in the classroom, 5 of them being on IEPs, we could have 15 traditional paid students, which we can easily make. But we're going to anticipate charging $40 a day. That would total $108,000. So that would cover, more than cover, what the program would need. If we had to go down to only 15 students with having only 8 paid, it comes to $56,400, something in that area, which still is reasonable because at least a quarter of that would be sped related anyway. I do have a survey that was put up on the Templeton Elementary preschool page. Nothing has gone up yet because I was waiting for this meeting, but I did have the technology department put that up. It is a survey that Ms. Calise had asked me to develop a couple of years ago before COVID hit. We were going to try to put together this program, and we had a great response. We had more than enough students to fill that program up. So I redacted that survey. We will post it. It is posted right now on the program. I will be typing up, I already did type up a letter with Penny's help that we will send out to everybody registered on the street census, telling them that if they're interested to access that survey, and that we would get back to them and let them know about the eligibility. Because I don't want to bind ourselves in saying that this is a registration form, because that to me would, as a parent, would make a commitment that the program's going to run. By having the survey go out first, we can get the feelers out to see what we can bring in for the rate program. Right now, with the students that we have, 20% of them are from Phillipston, which is increasing all the time. And our projections for next year are crazy. I just want to share that, they're crazy. Some of them, it's like, oh my gosh. Does anybody have any questions about what I've said so far? We would be proposing a classroom teacher and we had said 3 paras, but that's on the heavy end. We could start with 2 paras, and depending on what the needs of the students are that come in, could be different. I can tell you that right now in preschool we already have 3 students who use communication devices just to express their needs. So it might be a heavy staff ratio to begin with, but once you train these students on how to use those devices, then they become completely independent learners, and that's what we want. That's our goal. We want these children to be able to move into kindergarten, be confident, know what school is, and Dr. Casman can attest to this. They are the best line runners you've ever seen. We have on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 38 students that will come to the door and stand in a perfect line waiting for that 8:30 bell to ring. When we walk out, and it is so incredible to see. You can't believe it. They just come in, they file in one at a time, they stop and sanitize their hands, and they go down to their classroom completely independent. And that, being able to be independent like that has a lot to do with how the building was designed. We have our own wing, and it makes it very nice. We have our own entrance. We have our own wing. We don't interfere with any of the other grades. They don't interfere with us. And it makes it a very safe spot. The children feel safe. And that's our goal, is to get them to be a little bit more self-sufficient and independent, know what school is when they get into kindergarten. Because they're talking about the social-emotional component. It's not just at the high school. It's not just at the high school.
We see such great progress with students who are only participating 2 or 3 times a week, half days. So the ability to offer them the opportunity to be here 5 full days prior to kindergarten
And the benefit for the family is also because we'd be following the regular elementary academic school day. Parents who are working that might need extended hours will have access to the extended day program at additional cost. Because their cost is minimum.
Questions?
Is there a space for this extra classroom in the preschool?
Can I tell you, I was so hoping this question would be asked, because I already had my response made, which was about a year and a half ago. We did a lot of math over summer to figure out how to fit 600 kids in the building. Yes, there's space. We might have to rearrange some others just so that they're in close proximity, because the building was originally planned for only 2 preschool programs, but there's clearly the space for it. The only thought that came up was just furniture. Just to, because that is, with our population right now, that's starting to dwindle. But that's it. The space would be absolutely fine.
So you'd have 2 still like kind of part-time classes and 1 full-time?
Yeah.
Actually, we run, 2 classrooms that run 3 programs each, so we'd be offering 7 programs. And the rate of $40 is very reasonable. The state voucher rate for Region 2, which is our area, just rolls up to $48.18 a day, and that's for 6 hours or more. So most of them that charge that much tuition, their children are there like 8 hours or something. Ours are just the school day, the 6.5. So, and it's very comparable to our half-day program when you break it down by the hourly rate.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm going to try to, and you, everyone knows how bad I am at this, so I'm going to beg your forgiveness, but we often keep track of what other either private or public pre-K, or whatever the case may be. We keep track of each other because that's what we like to do. So I'm going to try to enlarge this a little bit here, or a lot of it, if you give me just 1 sec. But what we are very cognizant of all the time is how much money, our parents spend. You can only spend $1 once. And quite frankly, it's hard just to do that nowadays, right? You almost need to split it in 5s. When you look at our neighboring districts, it's very different, and a lot of it has to do with maybe their socioeconomic status. Maybe they've got some type of block grant or something, or they do the lottery, which was something that I was very unaware of. We give all of our children an opportunity to come to pre-K. Otherwise, you kind of enter this lottery system in other districts. Some, and you can see we gathered as much information as we could from our friends. When you look at the privates, again, they have a different. They just have a different structure of things. They have different responsibilities. And so when you start comparing, look, we have not raised our rates, I think, and the joke was, if I may, and Marie, I think you were the last time when your children were coming up through, I mean, that long ago, it's still very reasonable. Going back to the first conversation, you don't ever want to equate kids with money. It just doesn't feel right, but so I'll do it. Is that if this has to work, right, or we can't do it. We know that there's a need. I will say that we are financially responsible for any child requiring special needs services, period. And they would, of course, have to find those services, whether they could be walk-in, speech, or OT, or whatever, but if they're not, then we're on the financial hook for transportation or whatever care that they need. I'm going to go right back to the same, the same philosophical stand, is that we want to provide those services because they're our kids. We want them in our district because we want to know them, and we want to be part of their journey pre-K to 12. And we think this is an opportune time to do it because, as you've heard Terry say, that the numbers support it. We know that we have the sheer numbers of kids whom of need, but also the kiddos who would come in to be peer monitors or typical. And this is a great step into kindergarten, which we're constantly looking to do full day.
I would say, too, that we learned from the pandemic hit and we came back because we had to cut back on peer models because the priority had to be students with needs. And so So we saw some regression with our kiddos because they didn't have enough peer models in the classroom. This will just open up more opportunity to allow more peer models into the program, so we can better balance exactly what Terry was talking about, the number of students with needs versus those without.
And like Dr. Caspian said, it's not all about finances, but I also want advice to make sure that it's equal opportunity for all families in the district. So at the beginning of the year, we did not have the extended day program last year. I did all the paperwork and we are voucher approved. So any family who cannot financially afford to attend such a program is eligible to apply for a state voucher and we get reimbursed for that. So I wanted to try to make it as an equal opportunity for all families. So we do accept vouchers. And that's a lot of people.
That alone is a big step for our program to make it affordable. I think that there are some really great private, I've sent my kids to a couple on that list, so I know some really great private groups out there that provide wonderful support. But if we can do it ourselves, especially for those students who have some extra needs, to prep them for kindergarten, I think we continue to hear the challenges of kids come back. I think, what was it that we said, students in second grade had never had a year of school. They'd never been in school for a full year. So it's definitely, I think we've heard all the benefits of this early capturing of our students so that they can have time to assimilate. And we also, I think, as a district are able to identify what those extra needs may be and help ensure that the process, which is awesome. So, any questions from the committee? I'm not staring at you. I want to make sure.
So I had a little bit of trouble just understanding, you talked about how there's 7 different programs and there's 3 classrooms, and I'm just having a little trouble like understanding the structure.
I can't understand it. I just know what's the building when.
Each of the 2 classrooms runs a Tuesday, Thursday morning program, and that's strictly for 3-year-old children. They run a Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning program for 4-year-old children. They run a 4-day afternoon program, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday afternoon program for mixed age.
Okay.
Wednesday afternoons does not have classes, that is the teacher's prep.
And that's how it currently is. So
That's
what
what
is
it
it
currently
that
is.
you're proposing that we move to?
A third classroom, we're adding 5 full days. 5 full days.
Okay, so those programs
Stay in
continue
place,
to
yes.
exist?
Yes.
And then there would be a new classroom that would be Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 2:55. 55, okay. Thank you, this is what I was like, I'm lost. And then, so that would be the $40 a day program that would be coming in. And at that point, do you have like an estimation of like the number of student capacity that increases? Because I got a little bit lost on the IEPs versus students, and then what this does for our capacity.
We can go up to 20 students, 15 being peer models, paying the $7,200 annual fee, whether they out-of-pocket or voucher, and 5 students would be on an IEP. Those 5 students would be 5 of the most needy students. Because if you have a child in a half-day program and they're receiving PT, OT, and speech, they're not getting any of the social experiences that they need in a half-day program.
And in that full day program, then is it mixed age or is it only age 4 or?
I put it out on the survey for mixed age.
Okay.
If we can get enough just 4-year-olds, I would propose that we go with just that age group that's entering kindergarten the following year. But I would do mixed age just to get the numbers up
Okay.
for the peer models.
And then does our extended day program have the capacity to, because like this would be a pretty big increase in the
I
number
talked
of
to
students
them.
eligible,
Yeah.
because we're already at capacity for the afternoon program with no space to take additional kids right now, and that's only K through 4.
Well, when I spoke to Dill at Oxford, he didn't tell me it was a space constraint, it was more a staffing constraint.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, because we're going to have to rethink extended day. And by that I mean where they will physically, again, when we talked about extended day a couple of months ago, one of our primary concerns was the fact that we couldn't have kids in rooms that had been sanitized the night before, et cetera, right? We didn't want them just all over the place, right? Well, we hope that that has changed, that we've kind of come back to a new normal. We don't even have our full gym back yet, but we're hopeful that we'll have our entire gym back as it used to be. I don't think we've ever seen the full gym. We don't know, but we hope obviously that'll come back soon enough. So we know that we're going to have to relocate extended day within the building, by the way. So whether or not, I'll leave that up to Emily and her team, but what does it mean that they're in the library? Does it mean they're in the makerspace? I don't know, but we're hopeful that we don't have the space constraint because we won't have to worry about having to to mist and then close the doors every night as we've done for the past 2 years. Staffing will though, so once we clear that hurdle, then it would be probably a staffing issue. Again, it's really a matter of both. If I had a bunch of staff right now, we still couldn't take because, again, now maybe we'd consider it, but before we couldn't because we couldn't have them just in all these classrooms. We just had one dedicated space and that's all we could really clean in time, for
Those logistics are a walk in the park compared to figuring out 600 kids at 3 or 6 feet. I'm not very good at all.
Yeah.
We can figure that out.
So you did mention too, though, that if there was another model for this classroom, that would be, you said 15 students up to 7 evaluatees. So will you make that determination based upon the interest that you get so that you can
Yes.
best serve the students?
Yes, and early intervention usually sends me around May or June their projections for the next year.
And then I'm just going to throw one more thing out there, future related. If this works and we see true benefit, have we already thought about adding a second classroom the following year? Because if we really see benefit, for just students, why would we limit ourselves if we can make this work? So I'll throw that out there.
I don't know anyone, Madam Chair, who can handle 100 pre-K kids right now. It boggles my mind. No, I'm just messing.
Absolutely. Like I was saying to Dr. Casby, on some of these other programs that don't charge tuition, they do a lottery. We would be going back years. I worked so hard to be able to offer the preschool program to anybody in the district who wanted it, that I would hate to see us go back to a lottery drawing. So that's why we went in this direction to try to continue to offer anybody in the district who's interested in preschool the opportunity to do so.
So, actually, first of all, when Chris first presented this to the Financial Committee, I think we all thought it was a great idea on both of the programs. So I just want to thank you all for coming out and giving us the additional information because it's really been great. Following up a little bit on the space issue, and it's not huge, I'm just curious if we've walked through it or talked about it with the additional students in the building. What is the morning busing, loading, unloading, the lunchtime, things like that? You know what I mean? What are those going to look like?
Preschool doesn't use busing.
Doesn't use busing
It's
at all.
parent drop-off
But
and
again,
then
it
we
is
have our
drop-off.
entrance.
Is there a line, isn't there a line now? Is it going to,
Separate entrance and separate
So it's-
systems.
Does not interfere with the busing at all.
awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
Anyone else have any other questions? So I'm just going to go back to what Jeff asked with the last.
Sure.
So what do you need from us at this point other than just the support? Obviously, it sounds like this would fund itself, would be the way.
It'll have to, given everything we've talked about. What I don't want lost is that the current programs are not going to be increased at this point in time. So I believe it's $16 for a half day currently. That's going to stay the same. So what I don't want folks to hear is that, oh my God, it's half day and it's going to be now it's 20 for, not at this point in time, but this is just for that program. So because it'll be outside of the general fund and what the committee's already voted on, I don't believe so. I don't see there's a need, since we do have the space, we have the programmatic, whereabouts, we have all of those things. I don't think so, Madam Chair, but certainly
Yeah, no, I don't at this point see us a need to vote on anything. Again, I'll just ask maybe in the June timeframe, when we've got some firmer numbers on an interest and whatnot, just an update for the committee on where we are. I think this is a wonderful service to put out there to the community. And everybody, I can just hear the relief of some of the parents who might be able to drop their preschool student off and also have their kids in the class. And we know that, I was just thinking it was 2 years ago today, as you already mentioned, that, we didn't have students in any of our buildings, that was 2 years ago. And, to allow the parents that this extra benefit of we having multiple kids at the school, and we provide that service to all the benefits the students. So it's great.
And our preschool has been up and running since July of that year. We were the only program.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, just for context, to your point, Madam Chair, I mean, this preschool programs have these defined ratios for IEP students and same age peers, and we had to, right away, apply for waivers, and we were struggling really to have the peers in, we had state, really mandated kids who needed services coming in, and we had to waiver away, we weren't able to bring in the right ratio of peers based on spacing constraints, and so that was something that Terry handled gracefully, but it was still a challenging conversation and a challenging time to have to turn away families, and so to have been there, less than a year and a half ago maybe, and now to be in this place where we have a wait list, we can offer something that, as a parent of a 2.5-year-old, I would say, a full day is definitely great value to come up.
Anybody else?
When we do come back in June or whatever with it, we'll have more information, Chris, on the extended day as well.
It will have both. They'll have certainly the pre-K numbers will be, yeah. And extended day we're working on. I'm just not prepared yet to talk about that yet, but all of that plan will be done, or at least will be completed in terms of what we can. We've just been hesitant, quite frankly, to say, okay, let's just go back to. We're just really taking it slow in terms of going back to normal. But we're prepared to do that at any time. So.
I already have the labels printed from that street list. I have the letters on it. So I'll be having them tomorrow.
That's great. Well, I look forward to an update, and if it can be in May rather than June.
Sure.
Just let us know when you, I think this is a great service to the community, so thank you for putting your heads together to come up with this. And all the efforts that, as I think Jeff said, for both of these presentations, benefit to the students and the communities and staff and everybody. It's wonderful, so thank you. So next up, we have public input. I don't know if there's anyone from the public who'd like to say anything. I don't see anybody, so move on. NDEA, don't scare NDEA rep tonight.
She gives her condolences for not being here, Madam Chair. She messaged me earlier. She had an engagement she just could not work around.
Budget updates, we usually just talk about FY22, anything you want to ask her, and then FY23. So I'll kind of throw them all up there together for any sort of updates that we need. And that'll tie into the business managers.
I'm looking at Ms. Geister menacingly, because normally we just say, yeah, things are good, and everything's great, FY22.
Let me guess, you're going to tell us how much it costs to print these agendas?
Well, we may not have any, we just may not use paper for a while.
You don't have any
Yeah.
June's agendas. No, FY22 is, it's very tight. as I've told you before, we have a freeze. I've limited their spending. It's even more limited. It's going to be a tough one getting to June 30th, and we are doing everything we can to save as many resources as we can to get us to the end of the year.
At no point ever, and I probably speak for many districts around here, we've seen an increase or just in the red to the extent of subbing or staffing. It wasn't that long ago, we're basically telling people, begging them to stay out of work, for COVID reasons, et cetera. That truly is the driving factor at this point in time. We're going to have to make, and we're preparing for that now in talks with the admin team, but we're going to have to start, I don't want to use the word drastic, because that conjures up all kinds of things, but we're going to have to take some pretty serious steps in this current current, right? Just, I want to make sure I'm clear about that, about where we are right now, to make it to June 30th, because it's just, with the inflationary impact that just paper going up $25, as everyone has heard, in 3 hours a case, that's 3 hours. In 3 hours, we went from $25 to $50 a case. We need 7 pallets. We can't even buy it at $50 a case. We can't even find 4 pallets to buy. I mean, it's just, and of course, that just drives these prices even higher. And so that's just one example of almost of everything that we're, including food, including everything. So it's going to take a group effort to get us to June 30th. I'll be very candid. I will definitely have more for the committee because we're just not ready to talk about it yet. But next meeting for certain, we will have some hard numbers, information, that type of thing. And how we're going to proceed, going through, 3 of the longest months of the school year, which people don't generally, March, May, and April is shortened by a week. So really, that's where we're at. And I just want to make sure I put, the committee on notice, so to speak. But we'll be speaking about it more as the weeks go on.
Just don't print this for us anymore. Everybody here is to promo. Not that it's going to, but honestly, right?
Way to go, Sue.
But thank you, because in the beginning, we did it. Right.
It's Sue's fault, Madam Chair.
But, so thank you. I know Emery attached your reports for us to review. I don't think there's any surprises where the
Right.
lines are. There's not.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no.
And I guess the questions that I have aren't necessarily what's read, but are we even finding substitute teachers?
The answer to that is we certainly could never find as many subs. Again, I'm going to kind of take a step back when we were really involved with the protocols. There was no one could find enough substitutes to cover the number of openings that we had. So thankfully, and I mean this, thankfully, we have a clause in our teacher's contract that says if you work during your common planning time, you get X amount of dollars for that class, which has been a lifesaver in terms of staffing, because what some schools do, and I'm going out to the W towns, they just take whoever's not there, they put them into the cafeteria, and they go, okay, this is a study. You know what I mean? And you might be in that cafeteria 3 times during the day, again, given when it was really bad staffing-wise. They just didn't have anyone. So the answer to your question directly is no. We've never had enough subs to take care of the openings that we have. We're actually thin, even with our folks saying, yeah, I'll cover this, I'll cover that, I'll cover. We can't do that at the elementary school. Remember, they don't have the same schedule as the middle and high school. So it is what they have. So if we had, again, if whatever we do have, we really have to get to the elementary because they don't have a mechanism in place to do that. But our middle and high schools do, but it's very different. So we talked about it today, strategized a little bit, and then we'll have more information for you. But no, we'll never probably have enough adults to cover the sheer need of open positions that we can't hire, or the absence of the call-outs, et cetera.
And I have two other things, because there's some articles recently. One is about school lunches.
Yep.
And how they may or may not be funded going forward. I don't know if you've heard anything more. It's been very vague what I've read, that there's a chance that, because right now everybody has free lunch.
Right.
And that may not continue. But that also leads me to my second, which is some of the bills that are moving through Congress at the federal level to support IDEA and all of the other educational grants and programs. There looks to be a little more money, but it's not going to make the gap that the ESSER funds. So, I don't know, and it's premature because this is just coming out, what that impact could potentially mean to us. If we've got to have kids pay for lunches again, and if we don't have, I know it's always a challenge getting grant money, what is it in the long term?
Well, we've certainly benefited from, this hiatus of paying for school lunches. I think it's been 2 years, maybe it's been for 2 years, going on 2 years. If they were to suddenly stop that program, we would have to go back to what we remember, and so based on, the financial standing of a family, whether or not it's free, reduced, or otherwise, we would just kind of go back to that. I don't know what the outcome would be, the impact would be on the food service in terms of food itself. I don't know. I don't know if it would have necessarily an impact there, but it would certainly have an impact on our families. Let's put it that. You're right.
Cost rising.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I forget what our lunch cost is. And when you do your financial analysis, does the lunch go from, I don't know, was it $2.75, I don't know, it was $3 to now $4.50, because we can't get a slice of cheese, for less than.
We would have to factor that in, yes. That would absolutely, probably, I don't know if it would happen this year, I don't know.
Well, the prices are,
Yeah.
you'd really have to look at it
Yeah.
this summer, because the prices of his food is so
It's
high.
unbelievable, the increases, milk. Some of these prices that you've never seen, Anne-Marie sees them more than I do, but we were talking, I've never seen some of the basic commodity foods, cheese, milk, it's so high. I don't know.
It's getting it too. That's the other problem.
And we can't get it.
Yeah.
Right. And we can't get it. That's the other part of it.
So that just another throw that concern, because, okay, so we'll go back to the old model, but when there's a financial ramification potentially to families, how do we deal with that? That is just an unintended consequence, I think, if they do decide to make changes to this program.
Absolutely.
I think this is, in my mind, I think this is the best policy move that has been made, is to provide those free lunches.
I personally, I think it should,
Right out of the next,
I see it as an obligation, quite frankly, from the federal government in terms of food. I do. I've always thought that, but hopefully we can find a way. I know Massachusetts is working very hard to look into this possibility, but the cost right now would be astronomical because of the cost of food and transportation at this point. So we'll see.
So that was it. Anyone have any questions about the numbers? I think as you said, you'll.
Yes, we're not really prepared, but we will, of course, our next meeting.
So with that being said, we'll kind of move on and we'll get ready for that discussion at our next meeting. School committee comments, and I'm going to start at the end because I know that we need some input from our school committee member who also has tight ties to the PTO.
I have some inroads with the PTO, yes. I'm very excited to see Mrs. Hazelton stayed in attendance, because the first item I'd like to cover, I owe a huge pat to her back, and every time I say to her, thank you, she says, oh, that was the easy part. She has worked with all the K-4 students, and the preschool worked with their students to, we haven't done this now in a couple of years, to produce artwork for Square One Art, which does run as a fundraiser for the PTO. And it wouldn't happen if Mrs. Hazelton didn't every year say, when years we were in attendance, hey, it's time, I want to start working on the artworks with the kids. That to me sounds like, I forget how many students it was, organizing that and adding it to her curriculum to get it done on time.
600, sorry.
Yeah, and then we threw in a few preschool kids too. And she'll brush it off and say that was the easy part. And I said, no, you had to coordinate all of those artists. We know how artists are, and temperamental. So I can't say thank you enough for all the years that you've done it, all the artworks my kids have, the one my daughter took home. Can't wait to order everything on the catalog. But our catalogs came in early, so we pushed them out this week. And orders have started to come in. I've had a lot of parents say, oh, thank you. I wish I didn't have that gap year, or I don't have my square one art, but I'm glad I can keep my collection going. And again, it really is Mrs. Hazelton's work. The PTO side of it is a breeze compared to, organizing all of that. So thank you very much. But those orders, the catalog orders are due back to us April 1st. The parents can do a paper order, which they already have their catalogs. They can also order online. Most items are shipped to the school unless online orders chose to ship to home. So we'll take care of distribution after when they come in, and they are the estimate for when we should receive those orders is the end of April. So in time for Mother's Day gifts. That was my first piece. The second piece I'm super excited about is we have an enrichment activity taking place next week at the school. It's March 21st, 22nd, 23rd, it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And we have welcoming a group of, their name is the Crocodile River Music Group, and they bring African music, art, dance, and culture to our students. The program that we decided we could go with, because they do offer other programs, and I would love to have them back for their full program, but working with the spacing constraints when we were planning this, we had to be very choosy and picky. They are bringing dance workshops. So these children are going to, through those 3 days, during the Unified Arts block schedules, we're going to have 2 classes at a time come through. The music room opened up into the extended day room, and they are not going to sit for that entire class. They're going to dance to live music. The troupe is sending me 3 musicians with authentic drums that they will introduce to the students and tell them about, and they're going to learn about the importance of the dances, the cultural significance of them, and they are going to move. They're going to have a blast. I'm going to be there, so if anybody wants some footage of me, I will be there participating in every single workshop, unless they kick me out. But it does, they're saying, everything's a partnership, so the coordination of the schedules, we owe the thanks to Mrs. Wendy McKeon, our music teacher. And again, she said to me, that's the easy part. And I said, I can't believe you. That sounds like the hard part. And again, continuing the thought of partnerships, the PTO is not alone in bringing this. Our Mass Cultural Councils for both Phillipston and Templeton very generously approved our grant. And so between the 3 of us together, we're bringing this to the school and funding this program. And I just can't wait. Time needs to speed up so we can be Monday morning. I'm very excited.
Thank you. That sounds exciting. And I love the fact that we're partnering with our cultural councils. It's wonderful that the communities are partnering with us. And I hope there'll be some good pictures.
Oh, I will be bringing as many pictures as you will let me bring.
And anyone else have any comments? I just want to offer congratulations once again to the athletes that we've already mentioned, but we did have other athletes that also competed at states and regionals, and we have just had such a successful season with our athletes. It's so exciting to watch them be back in person and competing with lots of spectators, which is kind of fun. So I just want to give a shout out to anybody who might not have been mentioned specifically for the accomplishments. I also, again, want to give a shout out to our nursing team, who, even though, feel in some ways we don't say COVID anymore. I still believe that they have challenges they're dealing with because they're still administering many of the protocols that are still in place, and they're still working very hard. So please, once again, extend our thanks, especially as we transitioned from the students coming back without masks to see where we are. I did want to ask a question about that. It looks like we came back after February vacation. Numbers statewide, locally have gone down. It seems like we are operating well. I'd like to hear from
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So I'm just pulling this up, though, our COVID-19 info board. And as of, last week, and we haven't put the numbers in for tonight because they're due tonight, we had, they were put in, no? Yes, they were put in. I take that back. So we had 3 positive cases last week, and we have 8 this week. So we've fallen right off the cliff has been pretty steep. Our positive numbers have, of course, just plummeted like so many other districts around us. So far, so good. Yep, 7 students and 1 staff member, as indicated on our dashboard for March 10th to the 16th. We had 3 the week before.
Just out of curiosity, we're still doing the testing?
If it's still available. So if folks have signed up for pool testing, et cetera, then it's still available.
But that's dropped too? The people signing up?
I don't know. I'm sure, yeah, I think that the pool testing has definitely, gone down quite a bit, although they found these 3 through positive pool testing this week. So people are still doing, but yeah, the numbers are definitely down in terms of total tests.
And I would think too that because we are providing at-home tests.
Well, that's the other part of it too. So everyone's bringing home the rapids, right? Right, exactly.
Well, that's good to hear because I know that initially the concern was, okay, what's going to happen after February vacation?
Right.
So that's nice to see directionally we are moving in the right direction. And people are still maintaining the right protocols. So that's great. Anybody have anything else before we move on? Okay. So next up we have the Assistant Superintendent appointment. As we all know, Ms. Coombs has decided to retire, which we're not happy about, but we did not that we can replace her, but we do need to find a new assistant superintendent. So we know that there was a search, and I believe that Dr. Casavant has a recommendation because the school committee will need to approve the recommendation. So I'll turn that over to you to give us the background of the search committee and just talk a little bit about it. And I believe, Jeff, you were on it, so you can certainly chime in as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I might have indicated in previous meetings that we had, I think, 24 total candidates, give or take. That equated into, I believe, 6 or 7 finalists. Semi-finalists, which then 3 finalists were presented to me for the final decision. So in any of these situations, I mean this when I say it, the harder decision I have is just the reflection of how good the committee is or has done a good job. I had a real tough time, quite frankly. This was not, and that's how good all 3 candidates were, finalist candidates. But over the February break, I met with each of them, and they're outstanding in their own ways. But for the committee, I would like to, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about Molly, but Molly Serpici, I think I said her name correctly. I hope I did. I asked her, she said yes, but I guess when she gets to know me, she'll let me know. Molly currently is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in Athol. She has been a principal. She works adjunct at Keene State. She has years of teaching under her belt. Currently as I put it, the number 2 in Athol. They don't have an assistant superintendent position, but she is it. she has a wealth of knowledge in terms of course, curriculum, but assessment, and really the day-to-day operations of schools, and has quite a few years under her belt in terms of central office experience. Again, very highly qualified, very knowledgeable, and really a great choice. I've had an opportunity to obviously speak with Molly on a couple of occasions, both personally, over the phone, et cetera, and I think that she's going to fit very nicely here and actually challenge us in some ways, from the perspective of the work that she's done in Athol, which is fantastic. So, Madam Chair, I offer for the vote of the committee, Ms. Molly Superchi, for the next Assistant Superintendent in Narragansett Regional.
Before we do a formal motion, I know Jackie, we're on the committee. I don't know if you want to offer any comments.
No, actually, Christine, fine, I guess. I mean, I think, I think we had a great committee. We really did have a great committee. There was, I guess, between the different candidates that we actually sent forward, there were different achievements and things like that each one of them had, and it was a very difficult discussion. Well, it's a very difficult choice, and the committee had lots of discussion, and I think any one of the three that we sent forward, I think would have been a good candidate, so that's really all I have to say.
So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to appoint, I hope I say her name right, Ms. Molly Superchi, as the Assistant Superintendent, effective July 1st.
July 1st.
July 1st of 2022. And as per the recommendation of Dr. Kazadan. So do I have a motion? I have a motion. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from her. Any questions or comments or concerns that you have about that, or questions for Dr. Kazadan? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So that was unanimous. So this is very exciting. I look forward to an introduction. I believe we'll probably be at one of our April meetings.
I was thinking, Madam Chair, if we, at the next meeting would be the best, I believe.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's good. And thank you to Jeff and the rest of the search committee. For anyone who is not been on the search committee, it is not an easy thing, and it is intensive and a lot of work. So thank you, Jeff, for volunteering or volunteering. I'm not sure how that came about, but really thanks to the entire committee, because it is a lot of work, and I can only imagine having a lot of qualified candidates makes it even harder. So it's great. Thank you.
And again, just one more, and Kate was involved with the committee as well. I just want to thank you, Kate. She was on there, and again, just thank Kate for everything that she has done. You know what I mean? So.
She's not done yet. Okay, so just
Everything that she
I don't need her just coasting in here. I mean, I need her. We still have a lot of work to do, so we don't want to. We just need.
Is she not done until she blocks your number?
I'm just,
Yeah, that's it. I think that's happened, I believe.
I'm afraid we're just not going to see her again.
Who are you? All right. So next up we have surplus items. We do have two items tonight to consider for surplus. So I'm going to do them together because they're both cafeteria items. And if anyone has any questions to that, we can address it at that. Right, everybody okay with that? So I would entertain a motion to surplus the following items. One Montague 2-burner stove with standard oven, which is 40 years old and it needs all propane lines replaced, which is what we needed. And the second item is a turbo air freezer SS with 2 doors, and this is, this stainless steel, thank you. I was trying to figure out what that meant, thank you. This one needs some computer boards work, so that needs to be looked at. So that's the reason for your surplus. And do I have a motion to surplus those 2 items? So motion by Jen, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Jeff. Any questions or comments on either of those 2 items? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and that was unanimous. time of year where we introduce the fact that we have to come up with our FY23 school calendar, and we asked Dr. Kazadant to convene the calendar committee to come up with usually 2 versions we get of the calendar for us to consider. So if you wouldn't mind, you're probably already ahead of us with this. If you wouldn't mind getting that, we'll put that on our agenda for next month to take a look at. And it would be awesome. And I just want to mention that this calendar committee, there was some chatter on one of the listservs about school calendars, and I don't know how many districts actually convene a committee like we do to take all of the input from the parties who, I just remember the first year, like, stop doing PD days on Wednesdays because the kids come in for 2 days and then they lose them for a day and they come back and they start all over. Like, oh, well, that makes sense. So I really want to give a shout out to yourself and the group who comes together to do this because I think it really serves the students and the community very well.
No one knows the schedule better than a teacher. And so as many teachers as you can, put on a committee like that at all levels, because that's important too. We certainly have benefited. So I will pass that along, Madam Chair. We have a great group that yearly come back to discuss it.
Madam Chair, this question, Dr. Cassavant, that committee, do they ever talk about, this happens this time, it's going to happen across New England, we're moving to a March calendar, a March break with a longer Christmas break versus a February and an April. Just sometimes by the time you get some momentum in teaching and learning, there's a break. So, you're going to stop a unit and now you're not going to start a new one, so now you lose a few days. They come back on January 2nd, they still are not actually rejuvenated from the break. I mean, I just know across the country, like New England, we seem to be in this tradition.
Very parochial, yeah.
It's like a 2-week break at Christmas, the March, then it's 3 months of break, 3 months of break.
Before, the argument, which was a valid one, was that you couldn't put a vacation in March because MCAS was so prescriptive of when you had to do the 7th grade ELA, long comp. And this was the day that you could only make up the long comp. So there was no way, even if you wanted to consider it, you couldn't do that. Now that we have there's this flexible, I don't call it flexible scheduling, Kate, but they give us a window now to get these times. And I think it allows the conversation. The school committee, as you know, is the chair. You're the boss. If that is the charge of the committee, so saith you. I certainly we haven't talked about it in a long time, quite frankly. But we could certainly bring that up. I think parents would want to weigh in. Those type of things. I would imagine. I think they would love to go to Florida off peak. I know I've heard that plenty of times over the years. For me, I'm here anyway, so we can certainly bring that up. I'd love to hear what they have to say because it is a long stretch between, February vacation and April vacation. So I certainly could bring it.
I think the first year that you convened the calendar committee, one of it was because of this discussion we had brought up saying, should we be moving to that March? And as the committee, we're like, well, we're not really the ones who know the implications.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was the basis.
We could certainly bring that up.
Together to give us that feedback. But I would love for the committee to explore that more.
Sure.
And even to consider if we were to look to do that and felt that it was the right thing, that maybe it wasn't an immediate FY23 implementation, but you're on notice in FY24 that we're going to make that change, if that would help with the implementation. Because people do book their vacations early, and we obviously frown upon taking our students out of school to do set vacations. So, that might be a way to ease into it. So
Sure.
I'd love to get that feedback. Thank you.
I know the committee will love to talk about it because they do. They love talking about this.
I think it's just looking at what could be a better best practice than the way we've just always done things.
Exactly.
I mean, the Senate voted to eliminate daylight savings. I mean, we're starting to make some of these decisions, that impact us with things, so.
And oddly enough, they've done it twice in the history, in the 70s and the 50s, and they went back because kids were going to school in the dark and children were hit by cars. because it was so dark, kids don't walk as much as they used to, and that is research-based, by the way. That's not just me going, when I was a kid. The fact is that I think that it may stick this time. The House gets to vote on it next, but I mean, I think it might stick this time because of this simple fact that people don't walk to school as much as they used to and such. Yeah, interesting.
And we miss the daylight.
I kind of like the daylight. Yeah.
So thank you, that'd be awesome
Yep.
if we can get some input from the calendar committee and hear what they have to say. Next up, we have school choice participation. We are required by the state to provide input to them on what our school choice stance will be. We really have three options. One would be to say we're not taking any school choice students that does not impact current students who are school choice into the district. Once you're accepted as school choice, I just want to keep saying this so everybody hears it. Once you're accepted as school choice student, you are ours and you are in this district until you leave. That's the way that is. The second option is we could say we will take school choice in every grade, unlimited amounts, and are the filters open. And then the third choice, which is what we've done for the past several years, would be to ask Dr. Kazavan to make a recommendation as to what grades can we take school choice students and to what extent, so some numbers. And we need to report into the state what we are doing. If we're going to limit some incoming students, we've got to let them know that. So this is just Dr. Kazavan. If you wouldn't mind, start putting your numbers together to come back next month to the committee. June 1st, the report needs to be done, so in May we'll have to be making our vote based on the recommendation of Dr. Kazavan on what we're going to allow for school choice. So, all right. There was nothing that has come up within 48 hours, so I think we're good with that. I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Kazavan. Is there anything else you wanted to add as part of your superintendent report or any enrollment things?
I would only simply say that I want to go back to pre-K for just a moment. I think it's a big step. First off, it'll better the district, and I know that there are some competing interests, locally, but I want to say that expanding the pre-K at this point in time is the best thing for our kiddos, and you've heard the numbers, but what we didn't talk about a lot is that we are seeing, and I guess we could put a number to this, but in terms of percentages, but we're seeing kids coming in with far more disabilities than we've ever had in terms of sheer numbers of kids who have a documented, identified disability, and
We have 13 identified with autism.
Yep. We've never, and by the way, we're just one of many districts who have said the same thing. The sheer numbers are overwhelming. So the quicker we can get them into our district, quite frankly, I think, the quicker we work with our kids, I think the better off we'll all be. Because we didn't want to add that. I didn't want to add that to the description of the program, but clearly what's driving this is that we are seeing far more, especially on the spectrum, than we've ever seen. So we're at a point now that we need to be a little aggressive and get these kids into our buildings, working with our experts sooner, so that we're better prepared. That's really all I have at this point.
Next up, we have Ms. Police with a curriculum and instruction update.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about mentoring, but I wanted to first talk about this family information series that we have started. I really was trying to think, Dr. Caspian, of how this started, I think with a conversation with us, and then we talked with the union.
It's about behavior. We brought up behavior.
And then we brought Mr. Holloway in and so forth. So what has evolved from those conversations is a 3-night series of informational topics for families. We did a survey to ask families what they're interested in learning more about. We held our first night. They're all Thursdays, and they're from 6 to 7:30 in the library across the hall, and childcare is provided at all of them. We held our first night last week on the 10th, and at that time, we talked about the Biomass Survey. We looked at the results of the Family Information Survey and what people wanted to know about, and then married that a little bit with the Biomass results. So as you've heard before, Biomass is a social-emotional behavioral survey that all students are evaluated using by teachers, and it's sent to all parents, but obviously all parents don't complete it, but we have a decent completion rate. And then students in grades 8 through 12 also complete the survey by themselves. And as you've heard before, through that process, we have identified students who had serious crises and intervened to assist them, as well as students with lesser needs and put things in place for them. So we had our first meeting. Both the president and vice president of the union also spoke, so we had teacher voice about the survey and how it's benefited teachers and the process that we've had from the initiation of it until now. And then we looked at 2 or 3 or 4 data points about students. There were a couple about middle school and Templeton, and a couple about high school, and just around, just a few snapshots. And the audience who was present got to process that in conversations and give feedback about what that said to them and what they'd like to know more about. So as a result of that, the family survey and the Biomass night, we have scheduled April 7th as our next family information night, and we're going to have Dr. Ross Green come. So we're going to have an outside presenter, and we're hoping to really publicize that and get more families to come to that night. And he's going to talk about collaborative and proactive solutions to student difficulties. And then we have a May 5th, just to hold the date, night, and that agenda is to be determined. So that would be our 3-night series.
What was the April date?
Pardon me?
What was the April date?
April 7th. Any questions about that part?
Just, could we get, I know I get the high school newsletter, but I know that all of our principals send out a newsletter. And can we really get them to hype this up to, so
Yes.
I think especially that we have a speaker, I'm not familiar with him, so he's not endorsing, but I have to imagine he's got some great credentials, and will have a lot of value, and maybe that's one avenue to really get this out in front of the parents, to let them know that this is for them and the families, and that'd be great.
Yes, we are really talking about how to get the word out, and we've used, different avenues for that, but Mr. Holloway just today gave us some resources that included YouTube clips and flyers and so forth, and we just had an email kind of back and forth about, how could we package that into an exciting flyer to send out to people, and how would we,
We're going to put it on the cable, we'll do I have to save my TikToks apparently, so I have to space them out, but we're thinking about it.
So what I had put on the agenda to talk about was just to give you a mentor program update. I don't really know that I've spoken about this in quite a long while, so I think it's attached to your agenda, but I'll just go over some points. Last year, we didn't run our mentoring program because we were all about social distancing and not gathering in groups and so forth. So this year, as a result of that, we are running a mentoring program for all new educators from last year and this year. So that was 19 new educators that are participating in the program. And I say educator rather than teacher because we have school psychologists or special education teachers and people who are not necessarily classroom teachers, but they're educators. along with 17 mentors, so 36 people. It's quite a nice group. 2 of the mentors are mentoring 2 each, mentoring 2. That's why the numbers aren't even. We run an induction program for 2 days in the summer. It's a really excellent time. The first day is only new educators, and the second day is new educators with their mentor. And the purpose of the program really is to support the success of new educators, to improve instruction and learning, of course, to create a system-wide feeling of collegiality, to promote their personal and professional growth, and to establish this self-reflective community of educators who have somebody to turn to when they're new that can support them. So the mentors and the new educators regularly meet together as a pair. They have personal time together, just the 2 of them. They have a requirement where they keep a log for me, but I don't need to know, like all the details. I just want to make sure that they continue to meet together, and they have a requirement to observe each other. So the new teacher observes the veteran teacher, and the veteran teacher observes the new teacher. I don't get involved in that at all because I want them to be able to have frank conversations about that process. We have eval for, other purposes. So they meet regularly together in partners. They have the 2 days in the summer. They meet regularly together in partners. And then we also have, about once a month, we have a mentor meeting, almost an hour and a half, where everybody comes together and the whole group comes together. And that's where I am able to further our agenda about student learning and student well-being and so forth. So I listed a couple of topics that we've covered. I've done this since I've been here, and I did this in my previous district. I changed the book we use as a guide. There's a really good book of the first years, it's called, for new teachers. I've used that a couple of years. I guess I haven't loved anything enough to not change. And this year, we're using a book that's published out of the International Center for Leadership and Education, which ICLE, which I just can't say enough good things about, called Ready to Go: Instructional Strategies that Build Collaboration, Communication, and Critical Thinking. And if I were to be here again, I would continue to use this book. I think it's just so on point about what teachers need. So we've been using that, and I bring in other resources. So you can see, the list of topics that are included in those meetings that we have together, including what their roles and responsibilities to each other are, how to build that partnership. We have a whole segment on who we are in Gansett, where we talk about data points about Gansett and what our statistics say, and we have a little slideshow about who our kids are, set to music. We go on a bus trip around the community, so really to get them to know who we are. We bring in, business office and Anne Marie and HR and tech and, special ed, and introduce them to all the key players. But then we also have talked about lots of learning focused conversations, right? So I have to include things about EdEval, but I tell them that in this district, EdEval is a vehicle for us to improve as educators. It's a conversation. That's the purpose of it. And so you see the list. We have standards-based lesson planning and learning targets and social emotional learning. And tomorrow, I'm not going to read the whole list, but tomorrow we have a meeting, and it's about one of my favorite topics, which is rigor and relevance of the tasks that students are engaging in. So I think it's a pretty good, supportive program. We have, as I said, a lot of people in it this year, as Anne-Marie knows, because she gets the bill.
When you say new educator, is it new to the district?
New to the district.
And obviously new to teach, so you could have a seasoned educator who just happens to be new to the district.
Correct. And we do have a few of those. More often than not, they're new teachers or new educators. But we have a sprinkling of educators who have experience. And we can even include someone who's new to the role. So maybe they've worked with us, you know, as a professional and now they're a teacher, or they've worked at a certain grade level and they've switched. At our discretion, we can do that. There have actually been occasions also where we've had some staff who need some support do the program more than once. But generally speaking, I would say it's heavier with new educators. But even educators who've been teaching a little while, you know, need to know who we are in Narragansett, what our priorities are, what we think about instruction and learning, you know, what our priorities for students are. So it's a really good opportunity, and I really think those meetings that we have together, I think of as kind of plowing the field, because the new educator is learning about it, but the veteran educator is right next to them, also hearing it another time and processing it together with the new educator, which brings more richness to it. So, yep, so that kind of sums up.
Anyone have any questions for me? It sounds like a wonderful program, and it's funny, I was just having a discussion at my work about the difference in the younger workforce. They have a very different view of things, and how that must really benefit, because those are the kids that are coming through the school. Some of our veteran teachers who are involved in this, it's going to be a great perspective to see. So everybody wins by participating in the program.
Yeah. And of course our students, right? Because the more we support our educators, the better they become at their practice, the better it is for our students. So that's the goal.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. It was nice to hear more, and I'm going to check out that book that you're using.
It's really good.
Thank you. All right, so just subcommittee reports, administrative, academic, I think everything we've talked about has been covered, right? Finance, I would say everything that we've talked about. The Finance Committee has been covered. Facilities, any new information from facilities that you guys met?
No.
Policy, we do have some first readings, so I will go ahead and read through the listing of policies that were included for review to be proposed for first reading. We have a grouping back in the D section, which MASC, Mass Association of School Committees, had recommended some changes. They just updated some language, some references to legal references, and they made sure that the policies were more on point of what the role of the school committee would be. There were not, as you feel through, there were not a lot of things that needed to be addressed. So we have policy DBC, which is an update to the budget deadlines and schedule. DBD, which is an update to budget planning. DI, which is an update to fiscal accounting and reporting. DIE, which is an update to regional school district audits. DJ, an update to purchasing. And DJE, an update to procurement requirements. And DKC, an update to expense reimbursements. And as I said, those all fell under those points that MASC had recommended that we wanted to update. And then the last policy included is GBGB. This is a new policy that focuses on staff personal security and safety. This was recommended by MASC, and it was, I personally, and I'm a little bit Heather and Lori as we looked at it, it reflects statement on staff physical and mental health examination requirements. And we're just focusing on the physical and mental health requirements of the staff. And the school committee has a commitment to assisting employees in maintaining good health. It's concerned with occupational safety and so on. So I think this is a great time to bring that policy forth as a new one, because I know I've heard this committee mention, as well as administration, a focus on social and emotional health, not just the students, but the staff. So that's the so with that being said, do I have a motion to move these policies forward for first reading? So I have a motion by Lori. Do I have a second? And a second from Heather. 1,
We were echoing off each other.
Any questions or comments on those policies? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So that was unanimous. So these are our now first reading. If anyone has any questions or comments, but we'll bring them back probably at the second April meeting for second reading. Let's space that out. Let's see. Long-term planning, I think we've touched on most everything with long-term planning. Diversity, equity, inclusion, anything for today? No? I don't believe there's any correspondence. Upcoming meetings, the next meeting is scheduled for April 6th, which is Wednesday, right here in Kiva at 5:30. And we initially had executive session on here. We did not need executive session tonight. So with that being said, I would motion to adjourn. And we will, I can't remember if we roll call anymore. We can just, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, motion is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And
Megan wants to know if are they able to go?
so we need actual paperwork.
Yeah.
So Dr. Casvan will need to get us paperwork for an out-of-state field trip. So
I sent you an email, Megan.
yeah, there's plenty of time to get that done. So.
Just, yes,
We're going to put that Monday off.
it's a lot of information being thrown at me right now. All we need is the form and all the information, right? It's the out-of-state field trip.
No, that's you.
To who?
Like,
To me, yeah, we need, I said that I'll touch base with you and we'll talk about the form that we need.
And we'll have it for the next meeting where it'll get to us and then we can.
Sorry you waited that long. I didn't know that's what you were.
Okay.